Welcome to the June the 26th, 1990 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you the history of Grand Prairie and those that have made an important contribution to that history. This is our history tape number 123, and we have a delightful couple with us, longtime residents of Grand Prairie, that are going to take us on a little bitty sightseeing tour of their effects to the history. And we'd like to welcome Mr. and Mrs. Doug Motley. Welcome. Welcome, Doug. We're glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. And Modine, we're delighted to have you with us also. All right. Now, of course, the first thing we'd like to do is to establish your genealogy. And let's start with Doug. And Doug, would you look out into your camera and tell us the names of your parents, including your mother's maiden name, and maybe a little something about the family and where they lived and where you were born. Right here.
My father's name was John Douglas Motley,
Okay.
of which I picked up part of that name. And my mother's name was Minnie Lee Corkle Motley, which my dad was born in Texas. His father came from Tennessee, and Dad first married Minnie Lee in Kerrville, Texas, and that is where I was born and lived there until age 10. My mother's father was a Tennessean who was the second largest landowner in the state of Texas. His name was Edward Corkle, and he died at a pneumonia early age, but he accumulated a lot of land in the valley, and my parents took the benefits of striking oil and helped them get started. My father was a printer and also owned a furniture store in Kerrville at the same time. So as I graduated from high school in Ballinger, Texas, I went to Shriner College at Kerrville, Texas for 2 years. And then my third year, I went to Hardin Simmons University in Abilene for 2 years, of which it prepared me for my occupation, which I've been a realtor at Grand Prairie for 43 years. 1947.
All right. Now, Doug, I'd like for you to add into that genealogy the names of any of the other members of your family, like your two sisters. Give us their names and where they are, please.
I have my oldest sister. I have no brothers. My oldest sister lives in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and she also grew up in Ballinger, Texas, but her husband died and she moved to where her children are living in Fort Walton Beach. I have another sister.
What is her name?
Elsie.
All right.
Elsie Rolee Motley Conley.
Okay, that's good. All right, now your second sister.
And the youngest sister is married and lives in Dolan Springs, which is 70 miles southeast of Las Vegas. They own a ranch.
Give us her name.
And her name is Elizabeth Wildy. Her husband named Jim Wildy.
Okay.
And he's a contractor. He builds casinos there in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So they're well established. They've been there for many, many years. Formerly, she was a title closer at Stewart Title Company before she married Jim.
And when you were a young man growing up in the Kerrville up to Ballinger time, did you help your dad in the furniture store or help him in the print shop
yes,
when you were 10?
Yes, when I was a youngster of 10 years old, I used to help my dad deliver furniture. I worked behind the press. He used to fold newspapers. He owned the paper, and he bought out the one in Junction, Texas, and named it the Junction Eagle, which still holds that name to this day, and that was in 1926. Mm-hmm. And that time I worked behind the press, folded papers, delivered them, and that was my first job, paid for my first bicycle.
Well, that gave
it
gave you a lot of wonderful experience, right, too, working in all of these different jobs, didn't it?
I did start out at 8 years old.
Okay. Well, we're going to let you rest a minute. We're going to get to Modine. Modine, we'd like for you to look out and tell us about your genealogy, about your parents.
Okay. Well, my dear dad, James Mitchell Thornton, married my mother, I don't know how many years ago. It must have been a long time, because my oldest sister would have been, she's born 1902, so she would have been way up there. And so anyway, they had 12 children, 7 boys and 5 girls, and I'm the baby girl and the 10th child. And
Okay.
of course, by it being that, why I didn't have anything to do. You go in and play because you're in the way. So I didn't learn all the things that many people learn because of having such a big, many brothers and sisters. But my dad, of course, was one of those hard-working farmers and ranchers and had many things going at the same time. Many people say, well, how many cars did you people have? Because we were always having different cars because he was in the car business too. And he'd go to, I was born in East Texas, in Lovelady,
Lovelady, Texas is
Uh-huh.
in what county?
Houston County. It's not too far from Houston.
All right.
Houston County.
Okay.
But anyway, so then after a while, we moved from there to Coleman, Texas, which
All
is in
right.
West Texas.
All right.
Just very little ways from Ballinger, where I met my husband.
All
Later
right.
on, right there, close together in Coleman, Texas.
We'd like for you to give your mother's full name, including the maiden name. Would you do
Okay.
that?
And my mother was Mary Rebecca Smith.
Thornton.
Uh-huh.
All right. Is there anything special about that Thornton name? That
Oh,
rings
yeah.
a bell for me.
The Thornton name, of course, is, I think, a beautiful name. And so anyway, it was just an ordinary name, except, of course, he had Mayor Thornton here in Dallas was his third cousin, and he had a lot of other cousins in Crockett and Palestine and Tyler and things like this. But anyway, my dad, though, he was unique in that he would not tolerate laziness. He was really a busy one with that many children, as you can imagine, because my older sister was in college when I was born, the oldest one.
Yes.
And when she went to Baylor, I think they call her Mary Baylor. And
Are you Hardin Simmons?
no, it was in Waco.
Oh, the one
That
in Waco.
uh-huh,
Okay.
Waco. I think they changed the name now, but anyway. And but like I said, and when my mother died, of course, my mother died having the 12th child, and I was 5 and a half. Well, different ones tried to adopt me children. They tried very hard, but nobody didn't know my dad. My dad said no one was getting his 12 children because they were all from the two of them. They weren't half. They were all whole from the same mother and dad. So he kept us all together, which I was always so grateful that we all
Yes.
stayed together.
That's
You know,
wonderful.
so that's right.
Would you like to name all of your brothers and sisters?
Yes, my oldest sister's Mineola, and the next would be Virgie May and Gracie Beatrice, and the next was a boy, Odd Lee, and the next was Ollie Inez, and then Lang Smith, named after mother's maiden name, Lang Smith, and then V.T. Bain, and William Benjamin, and James Maurice, and Modine Motley. Gladys Modine was my name, Gladys Modine. And then Leroy, and then Harold Smith. And the reason I had another Smith is because he was born after my mother died, and so the Smiths behind us, which were very fine Smiths, my husband even knew the Smiths in Coleman, Texas, George Smith. They were really outstanding people, and they tried to adopt my baby brother, and that's the reason they gave him the name Harold Smith. But there again, they kept him for a while, but they didn't keep him because we had brought him back with us.
All right. What moved your family from Lovelady, Texas, out to the Coleman
Well,
area?
that's what his relatives said, because my dad was one of the most well-to-do people in that end of town in Lovelady that ever was. And why he came to West Texas, only he knows, and the Creator, because he came there and they didn't like it a bit. But anyway, he came there and we all moved into the hotel, the big hotel there in Coleman, until we could get this. It used to be a hospital, and it turned into a home, and we lived in this hospital that was, and it's still beautiful to this very day, that place there in Coleman. But anyway, no, he came there and brought watermelons and ribbon cane syrup and different things. He'd go back and forth. He was, like I said, he was doing everything to keep the family together. Like I said, he was a hard worker, believed in working hard for his family. And so he liked West Texas so very much, and so that's why he came to Coleman and settled there, and that's where he died. Of course, he died over in the Fort Worth Hospital. But anyway, Coleman was what he really liked in that end of town. You know, that West Texas, he didn't want to be any further than that, but Coleman and Ballinger around in that area was a real good farm.
Really wonderful area.
That's right.
All
what he
right.
liked.
Doug, how did you meet this young lady? Tell us how that happened.
Well, after 20 years, finished high school, and my parents moved away. I moved to Marfa, Texas. So I had to look for a new place because I had a job there, and so I found this apartment, which was about a block from where Modine lived. And one day I was coming from town to my apartment, and I stopped and asked her if I could take her home. And I met her that day, and I had a date with her that night, and we were dating for 9 months. And then I wanted to go to Hollywood, see the world, and so I asked her after 9 months to go with me, which we got married Thursday night, left
in his mother's
Monday.
home.
They went visited our parents, left Monday morning for Hollywood.
All right. Now, this trip to Hollywood, was that, were you going to be an actor?
He thought.
Tried to.
That's it. All right. How
I
successful?
surveyed everywhere, and it seemed like I had all the credentials necessary from a banker, from a businessman, but this in Hollywood doesn't count. They want local reference, and if you could explain to me how you're going to get local reference and not live there, I don't know the secret, but that's what they wanted.
All right.
So Sunday night, we thought we'd go back to Texas, and we were driving down Hollywood Boulevard, and I stopped at a stoplight, and I heard this loud noise sound from a man says, "Doug," real loud. I knew it had to be somebody from out of California. I pulled around the curb, stopped, and it was my ex-football coach from Ballinger,
From Ballinger, Texas.
Buck Gibbs.
Okay.
We went in the Al Drug Company and spent some 3 hours discussing all about my future and everything. And I never shall forget the words that he said. "You don't want to go back to Texas. If you want to make money, this is the place to make it." So
All right.
that's what I came out there for. But I was really headed back to Texas, and he had him his card, and it just so happened that he was personnel director and did the hiring for North American Aviation in Inglewood, California.
Uh-huh.
He directed me how to get out there. We had an apartment in Hollywood Boulevard, North Hollywood. And so I got up at 4 o'clock, went out there that morning, and I went to work that day, and I worked for North American 6 years, engineering work.
Engineering.
Engineering.
Department.
And then
Okay.
when they opened the plant here in Grand Prairie, I was one of the first picked to come to this place.
All
In fact, my badge number was number
He
13.
had 40 women working for him here.
Number
So-
13 with 40 women working
That's
for
right.
you?
I had 40 women working for me. I was supervisor of all the handbooks that goes in all the airplanes, 7 of them, and I produced them and edited them and everything.
Mhm. And
And
your
that
work,
gets back to my father
Yes.
printing business, and I qualified for that. So I did all that.
And he had him a
6
bike.
years is up, and I said, I'm tired of working for aircraft, no future, so I went to real estate business,
All right.
1947 in Grand Prairie.
all right.
I've worked for Hag Peak as a builder, insurance, and salesman. And then
24 years.
24 years, and I've been with Henry Templeton 20 years,
All right.
still working.
All right. Now that we have all of that established and you're in the real estate business here in Grand Prairie, let's get back to Modine. Now, Modine, you followed him all the way to Hollywood, and you finally got him back into the Metroplex. When y'all came back for him to work at North America and here in Grand Prairie, did you live in Grand Prairie or did you live in another town?
No, we lived in Dallas.
You lived in
The
Dallas?
Grand Prairie was so tiny, there was nothing, no place out here for us. So we
Only
lived in Dallas.
3,000 people.
We lived
Okay.
in Dallas, and then finally, then we bought a home the February of 47, and moved here the first day of March 47.
1947. Since 47, you've been residents of
That's
Grand Prairie,
right.
Texas.
Right here.
And during that time, we'd like for you to tell what's Modine been doing all of these times? We know you did not work out of the home for pay.
Yeah.
Tell us some of your associations of some of the things you've
Well-
done and contributed to the city.
Sounds like I'm bragging if I do that, Ruthie, but of
But that's
course,
all right.
I was in so many things. I was president of the Federated Clubs, helped every office up to the president, helped every office up to the president of the Council of Churches, helped every office twice in my sorority up to the president, helped every office in the local Presbyterian church that we had built and named was charter member.
Yes.
Everything in it that you could think of. I was chairman of the Red Cross and March of Dimes and Heart, and like I said, on and on. But you know,
All of the good things as
Everything.
as
Yes,
a
sir.
volunteer for the city.
that's right.
That is great.
And the older ones who are here, they know it. I don't have to tell them.
That's right.
They remember. They used to say, Modine, every time I pick up that paper. I said, I know it. I don't hate that. They said, I pick it up and you're always in there. And I said, well, I'm just do these things. I don't work and don't have any children, so I can't seem to say no. So here I'm busy doing all of this, volunteer.
At the hospital, you volunteered.
Oh, I was out there. I was the first one. I was out there, nurse. I was at
Mid-City Hospital.
I was the very first nurse's aide.
That is
Bought my own
great.
uniform and badge and walked from my house there, which is a long way, and did volunteer my time.
Oh, that is great. Did you ever work in any of the offices here in town
Yeah,
or do
of course, Roland the Cosmetic Studio.
All
Yes,
right.
I worked for Laverne, who owned it on Main Street.
What was Laverne's last name?
Oh, heavens, I don't know Laverne's
All
last
right,
name.
okay.
Laverne. Oh, she's married now to somebody else. Her husband died. But anyway, Laverne sold it to another one now that owns it.
Pat?
Yeah, Pat. And of course, Pat said, well, I'm not buying the studio unless Modine Motley comes with it. That's right. That's what she said. And so anyway, I came to work with Pat then because each of them were widows, and I worked for them free. Just got
Yes.
some of my cosmetics because I felt sorry for them since they were widows. And so anyway, I worked there then for years and years, and then I was partly in charge with the foreign exchange students for 5 years.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
I'd interview the families to see if they were capable and financially and otherwise to keep the students for 10 months.
All right.
And then I did that in some of the boys, like Bob Blindesteiner from Austria. He'd love to come in, and I gave him a demo. I used the Merle Norman Cosmetic Studio on him because he had a very bad complexion. And during those 10 months of doing that, he went away here with his complexion beautiful.
Oh, that
right,
is
that's
wonderful.
right, yeah.
Where was he from abroad?
Vienna, Austria.
From Vienna, Austria. That's wonderful. You have a wonderful track record as
Yeah.
probably the volunteer of the century,
Yeah,
Modine. That is wonderful.
But that's just a part of it. There's many more, but then that's, like I said, that's enough.
That's a good start, isn't it? All right, now let's talk about Doug now. And Doug, in some of your activities, some of the organizations, the clubs and groups that you're a member of, other than the Presbyterian Church.
Well, my first venture when I got into real estate in '47 was 13 of our men formed a organization known as the JCs.
All right.
And that was, I was a charter member of that. Some of the people that were involved were T.C. Williams, electrician, Raymond Roberts,
All right.
Eastman Kodak, who's now retired, and Grady Adams, and Margaret Sandfield's husband,
You probably know her.
Marvin Moon. I can't remember all of them, but there was
Yes.
13 of us.
Are there any of them still living that
Well,
were in the original charter group of the JCs?
Yeah, T.C. Williams.
T.C. Williams is still living.
All right.
Raymond Roberts is
All right.
living in Arlington. T.C. lives in Grand Prairie. Let me think. I believe 3 of us is the only ones I recall. The rest of them are either died or...
Were you all responsible for bringing the state JC's office here to Grand Prairie that's
Yes, ma'am.
located up
Yes,
on
ma'am.
West Main?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Raymond Roberts and myself and T.C. made trips. We got it out of Abilene and brought it here to Grand Prairie.
I wonder where that came from. So that's going to help our history of the JCs from Abilene to Grand Prairie, Texas. And the state office is still located here on West Main, right?
Wives were
Right. We provided the land, and
JCS.
I helped get that. That was the McElhenney property.
Oh, it was.
And first we had the where the county records building is now, county courthouse.
Yes.
But Mary Fiddler, bless her heart, she represented the garden club, and she did not like the idea of the JCs getting that spot. She wanted the garden club to plant flowers there, so we lost that one. So then I went on out to talk to McElhenney's, and they gave us this land out here where the JCs is now. But McElhenney's own both properties, but they got in trouble over the garden clubs.
All right.
Otherwise, the JCs would have been there where the sub courthouse is.
All right,
But
now.
it's as well.
All right, now that's the JCs. What have you done with the realtors, since you were one of the first
Well-
Those are
realtors?
line clubs, too. for you.
I was in 47 till 58, and it seems as though that we did not have any representation in Grand Prairie regarding the board. We had to fight to get a deal closed, go to Dallas. We had to do this. And so I was talking to Noble Avery. He's passed on now, but there was only about 10 or 11 real estate offices in Grand Prairie at the time. However, I felt that we needed a charter membership here of the National Association of Realtors and Texas Realtors. So Mr. Weems, who was our first president, and he and I went to Austin and made several trips, of which we got one planted here in 1958.
1958,
Right.
is it? Okay.
And it has been much to our advantage because it stabilized our everything about it. We've learned a lot. We've picked up good advice from other guys. And it was years and years later before Irving or Garland ever got into it.
All right. And you're still with Henry Templeton?
Yes, ma'am.
And where is your office located?
At 2210 West Main Street, Grand Prairie.
Okay, all right.
Right on the county line. Last time chance to buy a house and first chance coming into Grand Prairie.
That's right. That makes it a double jeopardy.
Double
doesn't it?
jeopardy.
All right. Now tell us about any other clubs like the Lions, or if you were a Lion.
Well, I belonged to Lions Club for about 5 years. And I got so involved in real estate, I just couldn't make the
That was in
lunches.
real
So
estate. That's when it was real good real estate.
yeah, that's back when real estate was selling 4 or 5 houses a week. Saturdays used to be the best day in the week. All these veterans were coming back, and all they had is a GI certificate. They could buy one for nothing down. All I had to do was get out and work nights to find the houses. So I used to get my flashlight and go out at night. If I see a little for sale sign in the yard, I'd go talk to the people, get it listed, and then I'd have me a sale because people were not picky then. They just buy anything because the county was for nothing down.
That was before computers and listings and all of the other good
We did
stuff?
everything by card. We made out a listing on a card. We signed a card. We only had one listed in the office. And when we go out to show, I'd have to write down the names of the property, a list of the properties, because I couldn't take the card out for fear somebody else would need that one record. We didn't have computers. We did all of our qualifying by mouth to mouth. Everything was done the hard way. And the salespeople today have a blessing. All they got to do is push some buttons and they've got it made.
Now, tell us your qualifications in the realtor business. I know you started out as a salesman, but tell us what kind of properties you handle and whether you're a broker, an appraiser, and all of that good stuff. We need to know that.
Grand Prairie has never been a good commercial town. It's too close to Dallas, Fort Worth. Consequently, I specialize in residential. And back in 1952, I took a contract with FHA to do all their appraising, upkeep, and selling of the foreclosures. And there was a time when we had as many as 400 on our list. And I did that for 18 years before I gave that up. But that was a big, during the Depression years, I had a good income off of the FHA foreclosures.
On the
I
foreclosure.
worked hard to keep them up and keep me busy around the clock keeping up with those properties. But I enjoyed it. I got to meet a lot of people and see a lot of homes and take care of them.
All right, since moving here in 1947, what do you think about the changes in our town, and maybe what do you think is the exciting future for Grand Prairie?
Well, the future for Grand Prairie based on Irving and Arlington, and that's what we have to go by because we can't compete with Dallas. So I'd say
That's right.
as a measure we have more land available than Arlington. We have more land available than Irving. Sooner or later, the population growth, which I read in the paper last night, which in a few years, Texas will have more population than New York, which we will be second to California, who is now first.
Right.
So there is something to look forward to is the population growth, and we are picking up industry, and I think that oil will come back eventually, but we can't depend on oil because it let us down too much. I think we should depend on more businesses from other states, and if we're smart and making our taxes low enough to encourage them, we'll have a good year.
Good year.
Good.
All right, we're going to let you rest 1 minute before we come back for a final cap. And let's go to Modine. Modine, if you had any sage advice to give the young people, especially young ladies, that are helping their husbands or homemakers or whatever, what would you say was the most important thing for them to clue in on as far as helping their husband in business and being an encouragement?
Well, for them to always have themselves neat and clean. Douglas never sees me except when I'm made up. He doesn't come home and find me all which way. And the house is always, he wouldn't know how to act if the house was out of order. Everything over these 50 years, as it should be, as far as me and the house. And so that's two things. And then, of course, always read and study and try to live by our guidebook, the Holy Bible. That's the thing that many people are away from that, and that's what's so sad, is because they do not take time to read and study. That's the thing that's important. And live it. We got to live it. There are too many hypocrites. We got to live it.
All right.
Really live it. And so the young people, they need to come together and eat together. See, everybody goes their separate ways. Well, that isn't good. You need to come together as a family. Even if you don't have any children, you need to be together as a family.
Yes.
And to really love each other like you'd like to be treated and loved.
All right, I'd like to say that you two recently have celebrated a great big anniversary. You want to tell us just a little about that? We have about 2 more minutes left, Doug.
Well, all I can say, I married 50 years ago, March the 23rd, 1940, and you never know how long or how these things turn out, but it has been a very pleasant 50 years. And
you had a celebration, didn't you?
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have a lot more, but today the divorce rate is so alarming to where it is something to think about. Married the same person for 50 years.
That's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you all very much for taking the time today to come and share your lives and your history in Grand Prairie, and even the history of your life here in Texas before you came to Grand Prairie. It's been a delight having both of you all with us for this interview, and we want to thank you very much for being with us. It's just been great.
We've enjoyed it very much, and I don't mind sharing my life with other people because it has been a very pleasant one, very pleasant.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.